the more you give up to somebody else, the more we get into the habits of giving up freedom to somebody else, the less control we have, and the less ability to say, this is how I want my little corner of the universe to look. And if you have what it takes to start a company, to go out on your own with the business, whatever, you're being a good neighbor. You're being a good steward of the freedoms that somehow in this country we were lucky enough to be in this time during this experiment. And like, I can't imagine being willingly passive if I had the ability to do so otherwise. There are lots of people in this world that should work for other people, and they're not lesser for it in any capacity. And there are some incredibly talented people that work for other people, and we need them there.
Right.
And then there are some people who are just crazy enough to take on the impossible and start something new.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. I am here with Stephen McKee with Back Porch Homes. Am I saying it right? Yep. Back Porch Homes. And I actually am going to hijack the show a little bit. We were talking about, before we turned on the recorder, we were talking about the tenets of running a meeting and sales and social media. So why don't you go back and tell a little bit, Stephen, about how you run a meeting, right? Inland Empire real estate meeting. And you guys are actually restructuring that so that it can be run by the members, and talk about the exercise of the basic 4 tenets that you went through in the whole, like 2 hours, and 2 hours later you were at the same place, but what did you guys learn?
Well, so what was interesting is, I mean, Todd and I are, for those who don't know, Todd Bayer is my partner in the investment club, and we're social people. We just want to be around people. So COVID has been like the worst thing imaginable for us. And so as far as the meeting goes, like, the meeting is not fulfilling to us online, but Patrick, who's a long time member of the club and always been a supporter, want to help in some way, he really thought that we could grab a larger audience across the United States if we focused online. I'd rather eat a tailpipe than do that. Like, there's no way. Like, it's just not for me. But,
love you, Stephen. Just tell it like it is. Absolutely. That's right.
But several members of the club, matter of fact, Andy Teasley, who has been around clubs for a long time, he stepped up and started grabbing all the old school guys and gals that had been like longtime teachers across the country, and we couldn't schedule them to come to our meetings, other than twice a year when in person. So there was like this benefit to doing online, and so we really wanted the club to live on through this, but we didn't want to do it. So in order to facilitate that, and this isn't formalized yet, but as a matter of fact, I have a voicemail from Rich because he's like, you need to call me. Rich Rice is going to be the next sort of, he's the president of the club. We now did a board like San Diego San Diego REA. And we wanted to hand it off to them. There was all this like controversy over if somebody could buy the club, right? I mean, we would never recover the stupid amount of money we've sunk into the club at this point, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. And it never made financial sense. It never will. So can you hand it off to other people and they'd be good stewards of the no sales, no pitch environment, without becoming, I don't know, just managers. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, without destroying the club.
Right.
And so we're experimenting with it. We kept intervening, and then everybody got really mad at us for our opinions. And then it came to this committee meeting, right? So we have a committee, and Patrick drug us through this exercise, this mind mapping exercise, which I didn't feel it was necessary. And then I was like, you know what? Like, and a matter of fact, I had Andy messaging me like, are we really going to do this? I'm like, yes, let's go through it. It took like 2 hours. I mean, we did not plan on doing this long meeting, but then it came back to these original 4 tenets we'd had for the club. 5 years ago. And so you kind of like, there's a little sense of pride, right? That it held up, right? Like the idea of what the club was supposed to be held up,
right.
And that all the committee members now understood what it meant.
Right.
So it's weird. So it's going to be weird going forward, but we kind of want to run it like how we ran Boy Scouts and we're in Boy Scouts. You have sort of merit badges.
Okay.
So like if you've done 10 flips, there's some kind of like verification process, and you have like a pin or whatever, like literally like a lanyard pin, like little thing says you've done 10 flips, or notes or whatever. And so there's like sort of regalia. So you go to a meeting, you can pick somebody out like, oh, that's a really experienced person, or like, a newbie pin, right? This is my first meeting, like whatever the case may be. I mean, there's a million ideas, but the goal is to create this system that lives on in perpetuity, so that we don't have to be the sort of fathers of the club forever, because it needs to outlive us. That's for sure.
Well, and I think that's important, because the purpose of the club is, and that's why, normally talking about clubs is not part of my agenda on this show, but I think it's important for people to hear and to understand, like, the purpose of clubs isn't just for the club runners. The purpose of clubs really are about the 4 tenets that you created. It's about community. It's about having a safe environment. It's about being able to let people get deals and hear deals and cultivate deal flow through a club, not for the good of the club owner, although some clubs are run in such a way that the deal flow is for the good of the club owner only. But I know lots of people who have run deals through my club who have found deals or connected or found money or bought, stuff to the table. I know nothing about it, but it just happens in the community of the club. It also helps me get deal flow when I'm standing in front of the room saying, hey, you know what? I want to look for XYZ deal, because you have a platform to say, I'm looking for that deal. But honestly, I couldn't manage all the deals that are coming and are talked about in the meeting. Like, there's no way I could bring all those down or want to even do all of those. There are things that go through that I don't want to have anything to do with. So it does help me as a leader, but it really helps the community. And being able to build a community and being able to give newbies a place to find community and find a way to get an education without having to be sold, having to be told how they're going to be investors and spend a lot of money to take an intense course when they're not ready for it. So
there's Pareto, Pareto had a bunch of like rules from his garden, and the 80-20 rule comes out of that. 80% or 20% of the results, or 80% of the results come from 20% of the people, right?
Yep, and clubs are like that too.
But the other part of that is he talked about it had to self-police, that the garden had to select itself. So in an unmanaged garden, right, like you have weeds will become abundant, right? Because no one is tending to one specific outcome. And so you also, the tenets of an organization become so important, because the other members will be like, hey, that's a bad guy. And they tell the other people, like, and then that person doesn't get any deal flow and they disappear. And it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It doesn't have to be really difficult. Everybody goes, hey, just so you know, that guy was just in jail for that, or that guy did this. And don't get me wrong, like, I've definitely had my fair share of terrible deals, but that's not the point of it, right?
No, it's not the point. The difference between having your career in real estate go up and down is true, and we all know that, and hopefully are transparent about that in our club. But then there's a difference between somebody who has either lied, or who has stolen money, or has actually done fraudulent deals. It's kind of part, like you said, it's part of the tenements of the club, or the responsibility of the club runner and the club owner, the club participants, to say, no, we don't want that person to continue to farm here, because the purpose is to not get hurt, right? The purpose of the community is to not have people get hurt.
That was sort of like we had people coming to us really early on that were saying, hey, I found out this person, and they would like tattletale, like it was stuff that wasn't related to real estate. And I'm like, look, I don't care if that guy like got arrested for a DUI 4 years ago because some stupid choice he made in his life. Like, all of us got here through stupid choices. Let's not pretend. Nobody selects real estate by default.
Wait a minute. I think I selected real estate by default.
Well, okay, hold on. let me say, no one selects real estate because it's like their first choice. They get there by default. I should say.
They get there by default. Okay. Yes. They get there by default. Okay. Yes, definitely. And we're all human. We've all screwed up somewhere along the way, whether it's in real estate or previous to real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm right now, right during this, because everybody's making money right now, right? Everybody's life is pretty good in real estate. Like, if your deals are going crazy, like people are really, and everybody's going to be a winner for like a year. And then we don't know. And I'm not saying it will go up or down. I'm saying we don't know.
We literally don't know. The economic talk on the street as soon as COVID happened was, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. I was directing people towards a video that talked about the stages of, how is it going to be the economic meltdown? And then we're going to have the real estate meltdown because of the lack of payments of rents, and how long that's going to take. And when are we going to see the meltdown in the multifamily market? And this, of course, would be the natural thing. And I believed it. And I was saying the same thing. And who knew? COVID pushed real estate prices up in almost every single market. Prices and demand have gone up, not down, and volume has gone down. So it's only been good for most of the flippers I know.
And the only exception I've seen is the metropolitan sales numbers are shrinking at a faster rate than the suburban numbers. That's to be expected, right? With COVID being tight quarters.
Suburban is going up more aggressively than metropolitan. Yes, definitely.
So it's very interesting time. It's a very interesting time in the market. We're almost out of every single house we have. I'm definitely not buying aggressively right now. But there are people that are winning. And I was telling people a couple of years ago, we are at a point where if you can buy and hold, then like just hold, like you're fine. But if you plan to flip, be super, super picky. Matter of fact, I got an email from Wedgwood the other day specifically stating that for those of you who don't know, Wedgwood's like the largest buyer probably in the country of people that flip property. I'm not familiar with them. Good to put that out there. They're like, I think they flipped 3,000 units last year.
Okay.
So they're a big competitor, a lot of the trustee sales in California. Their head of acquisitions emailed me and said, here's what we're looking for. All right. And their box got really, really small. No, cosmetic only. No, it cannot have to go through planning department whatsoever. Like very narrow.
Right. Yeah. Short, easy to take down, easy to put back out again in this time frame. Because like you said, we don't know what's going to happen when the stimulus packages stop.
Yeah. Or when they are. We don't know when they're stopping.
Exactly. We don't know when they're stopping. Yeah. We know, we know those ones coming. There's another one coming. So that's going to push it forward, but we don't know.
I didn't get any of it, so I don't care.
I got a stimulus check in my mailbox and I was really surprised.
I got actual like the $1,200.
Yeah, the $1,200. I got the $1,200. But yes.
No PPP.
No, I didn't do it. I didn't do the PPP or the idle loans either. I didn't apply for any of those.
I wish we did. We applied and got denied on every single front because everybody was at 1099.
Oh.
Yeah. Interesting part about the business. So if you don't have employees and you run you actually have a well-structured business, they don't bail you out.
All right. That's a way of putting it.
Me and Todd sat on unemployment for the last 6 months. We literally collected unemployment for me, and Cassandra, my fiance, was on unemployment. Okay. We were sitting on unemployment for 6 months, doing nothing, maintaining the business, closing out properties, making no money, like just sort of dealing with the outcome of it. It's been a very interesting year. Like I'm sure most of these conversations are going right now. I don't want to harp on COVID too bad, but
it is what's happening now. And I've been minimizing my COVID focus in my shows, but let's go ahead and just unfold it, because it has hugely affected the market. And it's, like I said, it's had the opposite effect than what we expected. And it's hit sporadically, almost unpredictably. Like if you're looking at syndicators, like one of the syndications that I'm indirectly invested in through a larger package of people, right, is try to diversify between multi-units and elder care and hotels.
Okay. Okay.
We couldn't have hit COVID any better than that. Elder care and hotels, all, multi-units at least is still standing, but the elder care and the hotels, like who would have thought that a thing could have come through that would have wiped out two pieces of the industry in one swoop?
That's wow. That would not have been. And you know what? I had forgotten that elder care was pushing so hard for the last couple of years. We had a lot of people at our club looking at elder care facilities, small and large. Yeah. And I mean hotels obviously, but I do feel like on a what's positive in this market, I was talking about it a couple months ago. I think office space is going to very quickly become small apartments. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be, you're going to see a lot of office space conversion to apartment complexes. And because obviously we have affordable housing issue in California. Mm-hmm. And those spaces are going to be empty. I mean, if you think about it, if you just take the top 1/3 of the floors, right? And you turn those into apartments, they'll get higher rent because they're on the top floor, and you can add mm-hmm. amenities to some of those open floors. Mm-hmm. And then everything below it can be office space because because space is likely to be smaller or whatever. And I mean, it's going to be a mix, right? It's not a one size fits all option, but I'm waiting to see some of those conversions. I think that's coming if we have a solid 2-year lag of portfolios not being able to put people in their units.
No, I think that's a good question, because that is like, well, office, we expect that moving forward with COVID, that the uses of office and the traditions around it are going to be different. Some companies have stated they're absolutely going to continue to stay with the uses of office space, even having office compounds. Companies in particular that like office compounds seem to be standing behind it. But then there are a lot of others who was like, no, Bank of America, I can have my call center at everybody's individual houses. Why would I have a call center all in the same space when I'm capable of now technology securing the calls and making sure that people can't hack them? And so now I don't really need to have them all together. And that's much cheaper to have them pay their own office space at their home instead of us paying for the use of the office space. So yes, the use of office is going to be very different. And again, a bit unpredictable as to exactly where that's going to land, but I think it's going to shrink. I think we can count on that the use of office space is going to go down.
Yeah, it's funny. We didn't expect to be building home offices at Back Porch Homes. And then now all of a sudden we have this entire new line that, I mean, this production run we're doing for a student housing project is also the exact size that would fit a home office in the most affordable size unit, right? So to go from, hey, we're going to build ADUs because the ADU market, was growing and the laws changed.
It was growing. Yeah, because the laws changed and opened up the ADU market, and that's what you guys were stepping into. So I interrupted you. Continue.
No, it's fine. But there's a whole new use case now, and I'm like, how many? 10%, right? Let's just say 10% of people don't go back to their office. I mean, what's that going to do to the home office market? I mean, either, and which we talked about going to suburbia, right? Like, are those people going to move to suburbia? Are they going to try and put a second unit in their backyard in some capacity for office? Have they, like, there's all these weird things that showed up with like quarantining and separating families. And so the ADU use was already like on the rise. And then this became like, holy crap, everybody needs a second unit all overnight. It was very obviously unpredictable, right? Like no way we could have known that.
And so are you finding, because that is what you guys specialize in, are you finding an increase in demand for your units because you guys kind of have the perfect solution for whether that's an ADU because you have a family member who needs to be at home due to COVID or not, like there's a lot of people who brought their grandparents back into the household so they could protect them, right? And as well as office spaces. So what are you seeing is actually showing up in your clientele?
So we just brought on, so the original company back in February that built our second prototype, they sold recently. And when they sold, they had redundancies. So we picked up a production manager, an assistant production manager, 7 production leads, the head of sales, from another company, we picked up a purchasing manager. I mean, like really skilled long-term people, right?
Yeah, right.
And
those are gems. And
in doing so, the head of sales, Brian's got 75 RV companies like in his back pocket. They've been, relationships with. Well, these RV companies have been selling fifth wheels as granny flats for like decades, bootlegging them in the backyard, and have seen a dramatic increase in the demand for those. Well, if anybody's been paying attention to logistics, nobody can get the material to build those units. You can't get RV, you can't get refrigerators, you can't get generators, you can't get all these things that go out. So RV lots there's no material on them. And so we started going around talking to these RV dealers saying, hey, what if we put these tiny homes on your lot? And they basically thought it was a full swap for the fifth wheel as a living space. We won't start dropping them on lots until mid-January, and to really see what the market's like. But what it looks like is a massive increase in demand for that type of unit, and they would rather avoid grandpa sitting on a plastic toilet and a shower the size of little.
Yeah, no, that's the beauty of your guys' units, right? I mean, it really is a auxiliary dwelling unit. It is not a fifth wheel.
Yeah, and it's an apartment on a trailer. it's really a way to describe it. It's an apartment on a trailer. But I mean, it's been good to us.
Yeah.
I mean, this mess has been good to us.
That's good. That's good. So why don't you actually describe what your business is so that people understand what it is, and a little bit about your background in real estate.
Okay. For those of you who have not seen the previous interview with Christina.
No, that previous interview that we did like 6 months ago, the reason why we're redoing it is because it never downloaded right. It got caught in the cloud and I could never download it.
Awesome.
That's why we're redoing it.
I didn't know it. Okay, that makes sense. Now
that's why we're redoing this.
Okay, so now I don't feel like I'm being redundant. So
you're not.
Been in real estate for 15 years. Most of my background is buying and flipping property, either for other people or for myself. My business partner Todd Bayer and I run the Empire Real Estate Investment Club, which is like 5,000 member club. I know everybody's got some ridiculous number of members now on Meetup. But
I'm not 5,000 yet.
Oh, whatever. At this point, I just like 200 people show up to the meeting at most, no matter what. So it really doesn't matter how many people we have on Meetup, right? We have been flipping for a long time, hard money, various parts of the business. And as of 2 years ago, we started transitioning to building tiny homes as ADUs. That business looked like it was going to go fantastic, and then COVID hit. And then we didn't know what to do with ourselves for 6 months, even though we had a lot of buyer demand from our successful launch at a tiny home show. And then out of nowhere, a rural college contacted us, Imperial Valley College, to build a 26-unit homeless student project. That was a referral from a professor I'd met at the architecture professor I'd met at that tiny home show. We were going to teach their students how to build. They were going to come to the factory and we're going to show them how to do the different trades. Well, she remembered that and referred me to this professor or this president. And then apparently she'd been tracking the same tiny home idea for 2 years, but she wanted to build student housing because in Imperial Valley, there's students living in 126-degree weather in their cars. Not ideal.
That's hard.
And yeah, so they got the home key right through the state, gave grant money. Get this, $100,000 per door unmatched is what you get from that home key program if you can build housing within 90 days for homeless. So these students most of them are out of the foster care system. So they have continued state money, federal money. I don't know which one it is.
I think it's
state money to live, but they don't have enough income to have a home, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
So the university paired up with the city, and that's how several of these projects I think are going to go. And they got a city-owned lot and grant money to put in student housing for these kids. They're single occupancy during COVID, and they'll be dual occupancy after COVID. And at $40,000 a unit or $20,000 a student, I mean, it's a nominal price compared to all the other solutions. Mm-hmm. So it ended up that we were the lowest cost of every single home key grant out there. Of like 168 home key grants, we were the lowest cost. I believe the next closest to one was $6 a square higher, and it was a hotel conversion in Tahoe. Okay. And they they were able to convert quickly because obviously it's a hotel.
It's a hotel, right?
That's
The use of existing space.
Yeah, we had to go from ground up, so raw dirt to fully built project by the end of the year. And by hook or crook, by some miracle, like it's actually going to happen. Like I cannot believe it's actually going to happen. The stars aligned, as everybody calls them tiny homes, but the reality is like everything's modular, right? Like no matter if you want to be compliant. Bob, my lead consultant, always says there is a mobile home god. In this case, there's a mobile home god.
That sounds like an Andy Teasley. It's not Andy. You said it was somebody else who says that.
Yeah, Bob Henry is my lead consultant. He was with Fleetwood for 40 years.
Okay, very good. All right.
He's very Andy Teasley-esque.
Okay.
But he was the right hand to a couple CEOs at Fleetwood and Golden West. And then, because we have six or seven either consultants or employees that were with manufactured home companies for 25 plus years. But you learn a lot from those guys. But it's been like just one good thing after another just happened. And I'm not going to pretend it was skill. This was dumb luck.
And building of community, because that's one of the things that you're actually good at. Your club shows that the work that you guys did back when you had a different brand as a loan group was that and is still with the tiny homes. It's the same thing, right? It's the building of community and building your network and allowing that network to work that has allowed you to get access to, dumb luck.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like it's definitely because we knew people, right? Somebody knew somebody knew somebody knew somebody. And it has seemed like every time I've raised my hand and said I need something, somebody found a way for someone else to show up. So I can't pretend like there wasn't work put in. And luck is obviously when preparation meets opportunity, right? But
right.
This
my personal philosophy is that's true.
Yeah, it's a series of events are like the fact that I got the production manager that built our original prototype 2 weeks into my plant build out after receiving a 7-figure contract that I got from a referral from a professor that I randomly talked to at an event 6 months prior. Like it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so is that my dog? Can everybody hear my dog throwing a fit?
Yeah, we can hear your dog.
Yeah. The series of events were fortunate, and apparently there's several other colleges right behind her. That this is a 5-phase project. They're also going to be building similar projects throughout Southern California, part of a 200 and something rural college network. Because rural colleges are the ones who specifically need these because they don't have the infrastructure for this type of housing. So,
you found a niche. Who knew? You weren't targeting that niche, but that niche showed up, and you guys were prepared to take the opportunity, and you did it.
Prepared? There was no manufacturing plan. I could not.
I'm trying to make you sound good here, dude.
No, because on the other side, I want I want to be like pat myself on the back a little bit.
Right. I know.
60 days ago, we didn't have a manufacturing plant.
No, but you had a prototype and you had pricing.
I had a prototype that just got stolen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it got stolen out of a yard we had it stored in. So like, I mean, just a lot of things were going really sideways for a while. And then I got a building really cheap by just circumstance. I'm at 57 cents a square foot in the biggest industrial shortage in the Inland Empire. I mean, it should be, we're at $7 a square. We should be at $10 a square minimum because you had a real problem that I had to solve for them. Anyway, I'm going to go on about this. I'm still every day I'm flabbergasted, but so 60 days in, we put our first unit out the door, and the last unit will go out at day 75. And my last floor being the chassis with the 2x6s on it is complete tomorrow. And then the line starts sort of eating itself, right? They go from both ends and complete all the units until they're done. Mm-hmm. And we'll be starting on our companion units, our flagship model, in the week between Christmas and New Year's. And I'm pretty proud of the ridiculous amount of hours I put in to get that plant up to speed. That happened from sheer willpower.
It's just a lot of hours, hours getting in there and making that work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that took sheer willpower for sure.
Yeah, So, and I've seen you guys do that before. And so I'm not surprised that again, like you were able to do that. I mean, that came out of your flipping days. I mean, there was when you were a flipper and you knew it just took sheer man hours sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely would work exhaustively, right, if we had to, but I would argue that manufacturing is far easier than flipping property.
I've heard that before. Why don't you put some fresh blood on that? I have my theory about it because I keep steering away from development. I just want to do something that's something I understand better, which is rehabbing, because that's what I've done. Although now I will share with you some other time, because this interview is about you and not about me, why I'm now sworn to not rehab ever again.
So, I mean, I'm kind of in the neighborhood. I'm kind of in that mentality with you, except for like maybe a pet project that I was really wanting to be an artist about, not about like making profit, because I hate myself and want to waste money, right? But because I have a project like that right now. But
so tell us how manufacturing is better than flipping, because I've heard that before.
So, for one, I have an incredible purchasing manager. Jenny is a godsend. She worked for Hallmark for 25 years. So she has all the relationships in the industry. She was able to pick up a phone and get lumber and steel when it was at 7 times the rate it was 6 months prior, and no one was opening new accounts. So that being said, in normal times, non-pandemic times, it's all about relationships. And what's very interesting is, so on a flip, we struggle to find a good contractor, right? Because it's all about the relationship with the contractor, to know how the project's going to go, and that you can trust them to not gouge you on pricing. And manufacturing is really measured, but it's not in the beginning. So in the beginning, I have no idea what these units are costing. I know roughly what they should cost per foot. I know what my cost per board foot of lumber is. I know what my miscellaneous materials are. I know that if I were to rehab a house this size, is what it should cost me. Okay. We will not know if we made a profit until the end of January, right, on these units. Then we will adjust pricing accordingly, because you set your pricing to your material costs. So on average, and this fluctuates between 43% and 55%, you multiply your material by 50% to get your wholesale price. Mm-hmm. And your labor in most manufacturing jobs costs somewhere between 16 to 20%, right? So you have a very clear margin. Roughly 36% return at the wholesale rate.
Yes, that's what you hope for. And I've heard those numbers before. Yeah,
as you hope for. And then on the retail side, if you're on the retail division, the numbers are basically the same. You just multiply that by the same multiple, and so on.
50% more. So every single time, every step, it wants to go up. You want to mark it up by 100%. Cost of goods, 100% more, right? Or 50% of your retail price, 100%. And then the same as retail to wholesale, same thing, because you've got delivery and distribution, and then you've got man hours of sales, and then you've got marketing to actually give the final retail. So yes.
So if you're running an efficient plant, you should have roughly a 65% cost, give or take a couple percent. About 68% is what some of our really senior people are telling us.
Okay, cool.
We got because costs are set, and you can look at the market and quickly determine if your pricing is off. That makes life easier. Your comps show up so fast and they change so quickly that you have price war issues, but you can only do it so far before everybody's losing money. And so the industry tends not to. Like right now, if you're buying from Clayton or Champion or Fleetwood, they're going to charge you a multiple somewhere between, let's call it 48% and 43%. So a little higher price. The number actually works backwards in that way if you multiply it in reverse. But so that, making a little bigger margin, and they have a little bigger floor. But all your materials are coming to the same place. They're all in a plant, like they're there. So yes, you have supply chain issues sometimes picking stuff up, but if you did what we did, which is everything that we build our units out of, we purchased at Home Depot, you just have a runner. So now anything I'm short, my runner can go to a supply, either a supply warehouse, like a wholesaler, or can go to Home Depot. And on same day, right? Either it's will call or Home Depot. I don't have the problems that I would have in the field, where I have custom, weird, old, whatever, because if for some reason a material changes, I have to make a whole line of material changes. Like the entire line behind me has to change. Okay. So forever that process is
So it
repeated.
doesn't happen.
Yeah, and so if you're building tract homes, you're a factory in the field. That's one of Bob's isms. He always tells me, he's like, you want to be a factory in the field. So Bob is kind of my Mr. Schoaf, if you follow Jim Rohn. Like he's the older gentleman with a ton of experience that just is like, all right, listen, son, here's how you're going to do things.
We all need those.
Yeah, I pay him to make sure I don't screw things up.
That's right, exactly.
And he's been through this a long time. So he showed me like the efficiencies of basically a factory in the field. Like, for example, people would want to punch me if they knew how much I paid for a 2x4, because it's about 40% of what you pay at Home Depot.
Okay. That's good though. That's helpful to you and to your capacity to build these housings for the school.
Yeah, but in any case, right? So what I mean is we're doing short loads, right? We're going out to, as a flipper, we're going out to Home Depot, buying at retail, put it in I mean, we're not thinking like a business. We're thinking like a, like a self-employed person, right?
Well, we're buying retail and we're installing retail. We're not trying to buy wholesale, and it's harder for us to buy wholesale because we only have capacity to do so many flips and only need so many 2x4s in the next 6 weeks.
So can you imagine if you take a company like Wedgwood, I mentioned, right? Who, if they stock material, stock paint, whatever, they have reps that physically come to their sites and they're selling the stuff at these discounts. And so you're competing with somebody who has a material cost that's somewhere between 40 to 60% of your material cost. And which means, so you as an individual flipper, you have to go out into the field and buy a home at that much more of a discount, right? So now it's hard to compete in the MLS because you're fighting these economies of scale. Yeah. Well, in manufacturing, all my competitors are buying at the same rate or similar. So I don't have to now buy at an even greater discount. We're all living with the same economy of scale. And so competition-wise, it's about superior product build, marketing, and product market fit. Right. But anyway, so
the point is that the cost of the materials basically stays the same because all the manufacturers are competing against each other. The cost of materials is the cost of materials because you're getting from the same supply chains. That's set. But therefore what you have is quality of construction, and you were saying specification of making the product fit the market, I think was the last comment you made.
Yeah. So, I mean, the product market fit, right, is about your ability to just identify trends. So when we started building tiny homes, I noticed that there were a lot of lofts, and I knew that seniors weren't going to be able to sleep in a loft. Duh. I knew that. Like, I mean, I just can't imagine grandma crawling down from the loft on a ladder to use the restroom in the middle of the night.
I'm laughing so hard because when I was just graduated from college and my jobs weren't very well paying. I slept in a loft, right? I had to climb down the middle of the night to go pee. And here I am as in my, mid to late 20s, climbing down, going, I don't even want to do this in my 20s. What are you talking about, right? No, Grandma doesn't want to do it either, right?
And it's funny because people are like, oh, I could totally live in a small space with convertible furniture. No, you can't. Like, I was talking to, we have a mutual friend, Samir, in the business. He does a lot of camping. So he built a RV recently, like a Sprinter. And we were sharing notes, and he's like, hey, let's, he's like, send me some of your drawings, right? And he goes, rule number 1, if you have to convert it more than once per trip, you don't want it. And he's totally right. Like, no one wants to convert furniture every day. I don't care who you are.
Right.
The most you will get is a Murphy bed.
That's right. The Murphy bed.
That's it.
That's because it drops out of the wall and then it pushes back up again. And so the converting of it is so simple that you're willing to tolerate it, but that's it.
Yeah, and you'll do it because it kind of makes the bed as you close the Murphy bed, right? The sheets kind of dangle and you're done. So, but that's all you get. So I can't imagine somebody in their 70s like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna be,
convert this.
Pull off these cushions, lay all this.
Slide the boards in place, pull the mattress out, make the bed. Right.
Nobody's doing that. We also knew that if we were going to sell this product to somebody that could potentially have a senior, there's a good chance they could have some kind of handicap, right? They would need a wheelchair, a walker, a cane. They were going to need to avoid steps. They were going to need to avoid any of the things that would make it difficult for a handicapped person to get around. We keep our upper cabinets at 16 inches, which is the ADA requirement. We make sure we have 42-inch hallways, 36-inch doors. Like we wanted the product to be universal. And there are several companies out there that have like 27 floor plans, and it doesn't, they say that the customers want different stuff. Well, it's my opinion that the customer would rather pay less and only get to choose from these 3 floor plans. They're basically just different lengths.
By the way, so Trader Joe's would agree with you. Trader Joe's has done extensive research on if you have 15 different or 20 different choices for peanut butter, right? Your actual level of satisfaction at purchase has been found to be lower than if you only have 3.
Really?
Because if you can pick 3, you know you want the super crunchy with salt or the super crunchy without salt, and you just take it. You don't sit there and go, is Jiffy better than Skippy, which is better than the local brand, which is like, you don't question your purchase. You just go, this is what's available. I accept it. I am satisfied with my purchase.
Interesting. Well, okay. Well, for whatever reason, we came with no scientific research whatsoever.
Exactly. No scientific background to it whatsoever. You discovered that this is the format you're doing, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And we were only going to have 2 products originally, and the COVID thing made the whole use small unit. But
then you did the office.
Yeah, so having a price range, right? And we're not sure if it's going to be 40, 45, whatever the retail price is. I think we may be 50, 60, and 70, and then we'll do like bulk pricing for government, and then we'll like go down on the small one. But anyway, we haven't decided the retail price on that product yet. But we could tell that it's like the mama bear, the papa bear, and the baby bear, right? Like the different sizes. It was all the childhood stories that led to this great marketing plan. So the average cost, a lot of these tiny home builders is about $105,000, and our largest unit is 70,000.
Right.
So and it fits every single customer. So for us, it was about the efficiencies of only building 3 models in the plant. They all come out white, right? We make the joke that, the Henry Ford line, right? You can have it in any color as long as it's black. You can have it in any color as long as it's white.
That's right.
You don't get to pick cabinets. You don't get to pick flooring. You don't get to pick anything. It's a box with everything you need: washer dryer combo, full size appliances. I mean, everything you could ask for with none of the extras, and you can paint it, customize it, put flooring in it, whatever you want to your heart's content.
Play with it afterwards. After we deliver it, you play with it.
And I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'd like to see what the customers are going to do, right? It'd be very interesting to see their variations of your product.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, I would drag on about this whole product market fit for a long time, but I really think it's important for people in real estate investing to understand that when you're choosing your business model, you need to think about simplifying it. And people love all the nuances of real estate and all the ways you can make it cool. But man, the thing I see as the biggest failure for everybody in this business is they never build a system. They never ever get down to one. There's no assembly line.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Even in rehabbing, I've seen it, and even in my own rehabbing, I've seen it. I have a system for other things, but and you're right, it's not nearly as efficient. But you have to put the time in, invest the time in to have a system, and therefore, somebody who's done 50 to 100 flips, they start creating a system. This is my box. This is what I purchased. This is what I do. This is my rehab, and I'm done with it. And this is my system. But originally how we got into this conversation, you were saying manufacturing is better than rehabbing because of the simplicity. We've got 3 lines. This is what we create. We know what our product is. We know why we've created it that way. It's usable by multiple different target markets. And we know what our pricing is. We have a system, it comes in, it comes out, and that's what it does. And it allows you to get better control, probably pretty much over the whole process versus this sort of like contractor, just this last flip I did, we had to move the pole and we have adjusting the height of the fence. And it's like just a waste of material and times because we're rehabbing instead of building it from the beginning and having a clear plan from the beginning as to what it's going to be and why it's going to show up that way.
You know what? So that brings up a good point that we didn't notice till we started selling. Our primary client is a baby boomer, not for themselves because they're buying up and down, right? So if there's a lot of talk about the ADU market right now. Like,
okay, your primary client is the baby boomer, but
not the baby boomer is writing the check.
Okay,
but they're buying up and they're buying down. They're buying for the 22-year-old and they're buying for the 72-year-old.
Oh, okay. So they're buying for their parents, or they're buying for their children.
Yes, and they're the ones making the buying decision, even if the other 2 people are spending the money. Okay. So even if the kids financing it through
I see
21st mortgage, or mom is buying it with her own cash,
Okay.
and it's going on their property,
Mhm.
they're the ones who lead that decision. So when we're marketing to them, we're marketing just to the boomer, and the boomer influences the other two. Like
Okay.
we're the solution that sends it out. So if you're in the ADU market and you're flipping property or you're building a rental with an ADU or whatever, you should keep that in mind, that the person that you're going to be selling to is that boomer client. So the look, feel, design, whatever, should sort of revolve around those people's taste. And ironically, they love big stuff. They love grandiose. They love whatever, right? And they love these very practical or impractical things that go into a home. So, for example, a formal dining room, formal living room, right? To a 22-year-old sitting at having 2 bar seats is perfectly fine. I just sit at the bar and eat my lunch, right? But
and I'm going to invite my friend over, and we're going to chat anyways. And they might sit at the bar, but they might sit on the chair. They might sit on the kitchen counter.
yeah, but to a boomer client, they want a place for that dinette, even if it's only 2 chairs. And like you would have, I've had so many people go, "Where does the table go?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, where does the table go?" Like it's a
It's a tiny home.
studio. But now all our homes have a place for a table.
Okay.
For a 2-person table. So there is no bar end anymore. There is no bar to sit at. It's completely deleted. We went with a wider walkway, and then now when you walk in the front door, what you're looking at is the place where a little 2-person table goes. And there's still a 12-foot living room that fits a full-size Pottery Barn couch in case they decide to buy that.
That's right, and they will. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to change the topic completely. So one of the questions that is part of my regular routine is, why use real estate for creating your financial freedom? Why not just do a W-2? Why put up with all of this? We've talked about the complexity of real estate, being an entrepreneur, being a manufacturer. We've alluded to many times how it's a pain in the patootie because we each have gained money, lost money. You and I have had these conversations ourselves offline. Why do real estate? Why not just get a W-2? And what's the attraction for doing such a complex field like real estate?
I probably would have had a very different answer a year ago. I think a year ago, I'd have told you could be your own boss. You could choose your own time. You have the freedom of, because it's really freedom, right? Time freedom is what everybody's was vying for.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't feel that way anymore.
Okay.
In this post-pandemic time period, right? And by 2024, we'll all forgot it happened. But in the time period we have, that's what happened after Spanish flu. It's going to happen again. Manhattan prices will come back in 2024, and I'll be buying it there in the next year and a half.
That's right. It will be temporary, and we will forget, and we will move back into our habits. And what new habits is the only question, not when we re-embrace our habits. It's just what new habits will shift because of the pandemic, like office space. But we're going to continue to have work. We're going to continue to have jobs. We're going to continue to have a need for office space. But the new habit of working at home might shift that industry. Not office space is going to disappear because we're all afraid of COVID for the next 50 years.
Yeah, and I will be buying like first floor walk-ups by Central Park, as rentals later on, because I will want. They're going to be super low price and
right
for the value. But
so continue. So your answer would be different this year.
I say it'd be different because something in me feels far more patriotic about being a business owner than it did a long time ago. Okay. Our freedoms in this country are not given; they're earned, and it's an idea, and we have to keep them. And the more you give up to somebody else, the more we get into the habits of giving up freedom to somebody else, the less control we have, and the less ability to say, this is how I want my little corner of the universe to look. Mm-hmm. And if you have what it takes to start a company, to go out on your own with the business, whatever, you're being a good neighbor. You're being a good steward of the freedoms that somehow in this country we were lucky enough to be in this time during this experiment. And I can't imagine being willingly passive if I had the ability to do so otherwise. There are lots of people in this world that should work for other people, and they're not lesser for it in any capacity. And there are some incredibly talented people They work for other people, and we need them there.
Right.
And then there are some people who are just crazy enough to take on the impossible and start something new. And that is so important to the way this country runs, that I really believe it. There's this quote I keep saying over and over again, and I forget who said it, but I heard it and I can't forget it. I can't change the world, but I can make a corner of it really, really nice. Right. And so being a business owner in capacity, and you are a business owner if you are just buying rentals, right? That's your business. Mm-hmm. If you're flipping houses, whatever, that's your business. You're making the world a better place. And so if you need no other reason, it's just because you want to be a good steward of your community. And yes, all the other stuff comes with it. You get the time freedom, but you get the heartburn, right? And you get the fact that the average entrepreneur makes $25,000 a year. Right? You get to go a hell of a lot of your kids' soccer games. And you get to see your friends, like whenever you want to. And yeah, maybe you'll get dumped on for a couple years and it'll suck. And I mean, I've had my fair share of times where it's absolutely awful, but damn, like I would never, ever, ever take back any of the experiences I had, because I feel like my life is richer. And I had this thought the other day. I know it's like a long-winded answer to it, but I feel very emotional about this idea right now. I was listening to Jim Collins talk about death. Tim Ferriss was interviewing him, and he talked about this specific general that was telling the story that had been in. I just feel bad, I can't remember his name right now. He was a very important person. He wrote a book that's very important. He was in, I think, the longest standing prisoner in Vietnam. Like it was, and he was so important to that specific Vietnamese prison. And he talked about being comfortable dying because he had already done all these things. Like he had already lived all these lives. And like I'm going to be 40 next year, and I postponed my wedding, right? We're supposed to get married in September. I postponed our wedding to next year because we couldn't go to Greece and get married. Everything was already set up. We had to postpone it. But I was listening to that and I felt shockingly comfortable with the idea that if for some reason a semi just hit the side of my truck, I'd feel fine about it. And I don't think I'd feel that way if I had spent my life living somebody else's life.
Right.
So I think it's very important for that reason. And I hope more people, especially because of all the external factors that are happening right now, they're going to make their lives more difficult, decide to pick up that sword, and attempt to start their own business. And it's going to suck really bad a lot, but it's also really, really, really awesome. Like I'm sitting at a bar and building in my garage because I'm just an idiot and I want to go to have a beer with my friends. And I just did it one day. I just started something new, and I'm pissed because I bought stainable wood putty and it wasn't really stainable, and I should have used my own sawdust and mixed with glue and make my own wood putty. And then I want to have this problem, and every woodworker watching this is laughing at me right now because they know better, even though I bought all the same product lines. But at the end of the day, I'm just gonna skip sand the whole thing, throw a coat of lacquer on it and call it distressed.
Right.
That's what entrepreneurship is.
That's right. It is what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
a perfect example.
And you know what? Nobody's going to complain when they're drinking a beer at it.
No.
And so there's an element to that mentality that's so freeing. And you feel, sometimes you don't sleep. Sometimes you go to bed worried and you wake up at 3 a.m. But damn, sometimes you crash so hard, so satisfied, have the best days. And that's like that. So you can either live like this or you can live like this. And this way is back to Jim Collins again. He said, you can live a whole bunch of, zeros and ones, or you can live a bunch of twos, right? Mm-hmm. Plus 2, -2. And mm-hmm. I'll take the plus 2, -2 all day.
Yeah. I actually really, really love your description of knowing that if you got hit by a semi in the side of your pickup truck and you had to go, that's it. God says you're out of here. Like you'd actually be satisfied because you were living yourself. I think that's the most important lesson, because you were living yourself. You were living authentically that which is you.
Yeah, but I also feel like I it is because I was authentic, right? So I'm living my true self, but I feel like I checked off these boxes that I was able to check off a lot sooner, right? I felt somebody loved so much that I wanted to marry them, right? Like I, first time in my life, right? Like I built these great businesses with friends, and I had these experiences that I would have never had, and I don't feel like I'm missing it. And I accomplished my quote life goal, right, by like 35, and then I sort of felt like, wow, now what? And then I realized like the sky was the limit, but also like, man, there's an incredible amount of satisfaction that comes with that idea. And like, I also felt like maybe I set the bar a little too low if I got to that early.
You got it so early, dude. Yeah, maybe you need to try a little higher.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
but it was true.
And I felt and I feel really good about it. And so if you have any inkling to live that type of life where you feel like you could get hit by a semi tomorrow and be okay with it, like start your own business.
Right. Know that you did it. Know that you did it. Succeed or fail, but you did it. You chose it.
Yeah, you chose it. And like there's a really good interview with Guy Ritchie, who's a film director. Everybody knows him for dating Madonna. But he's one of my favorite film directors. And during this interview, he explains why every story in movie history is a story of the prodigal son. And if you're not familiar with the story of the prodigal son, essentially like he takes the inheritance from, there's two sons, one takes the inheritance from his father, the other does not, during his, who wants their inheritance now, goes out, parties hard, whatever. And then ends up so broke that he's feeding pigs, and the food is so bad he can't even eat it himself. So he comes back home, and his dad says, "Welcome home, son. Once for once you were lost, now you're found." And there's this idea, like what you don't realize is that all parts are you. The father and both sons are you. Mm-hmm. And the safe son, the one who stayed home, the one that was a good boy, the one who stayed in line, never learned his true self because he always stayed in the safe zone. Mm-hmm. The other son came home and came back around and learned the limitations of who he was, and
accepted them.
Yeah, and it's all you, and all those people are you. And I think about that all the time now. Like I have lived some seriously stupid extremes, and I've very much like learned who I am. So I encourage people go, and I don't mean like put your family in jeopardy. No. But listen, the welfare system in this country is still pretty damn decent. If you lost everything, you're going to be living in just a smaller apartment, and food stamps get you a lot of food. If you've ever lived on any kind of government assistance, it's not that bad.
And you can get a job, and you can move forward. Like you don't have to give up. I mean, if all is taken from you, there is still the capacity to take a shower, put on some clothes, walk into Walmart or McDonald's or Starbucks or somewhere and say, I need a job.
They may give you a job without the clothes in the shower too.
They might give you a job without the clothes in the shower, but they do help. The clothes and homeless shelters have clothes and showers available. So there is a way to pick yourself back up again if you're willing to accept that you've learned the limitation of you, but you have to accept it.
Yeah, you have to be willing to lose everything. It's only when we've lost everything that we're free to do anything, right? You have to be willing to truly do that, and a lot of people are not willing to do that. And so really, what you're asking yourself, if you decide you want to be an entrepreneur, is: are you brave enough? Are you a strong enough person to lose everything and get back up?
Those are big words. Okay, with ending on that thought, we're going to end on that thought. Stephen, how do people get a hold of you? If they want to buy a tiny home, they want to be part of your business, they want to join your Inland Empire Club, they want to just talk to you because you're a crazy dude who has, these huge forward thoughts, how do they get a hold of you? And what's your website? What's your phone number? What's your email?
So easiest way to find us is backporchhomes.com. If you want to call in the office, and Brian should answer the phone at 951-394-1844. You can take your sales calls. I encourage anybody who is, and even if you don't buy a home from us in any capacity, anybody who is interested in becoming a landlord for the first time, take a look at what a tiny home in your backyard would look like, or build an ADU, or convert a tough shed, or buy a duplex, or whatever. But call in and put Brian through his paces and ask him all the investment questions because he's new and I'd like to see what would happen. But we originally built these units because tiny homes, we wanted people to be able to put a tiny home in the backyard, and that would be the first investment. So I would say that's a very safe path to go down if you're a person who's a little trepid into the process. Right. Hit our website and check us out. So
backporchhomes.com. Mm-hmm. And you're Stephen McKee. And what is your official position there?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do you have a title?
I'm trying to become a board member and hire a CEO, but I think I'm the de facto CEO until then, because the vision is, it's like I designed the product. Todd had the dream of the financing. So Todd became the CFO and I became the CEO.
CEO. Yep.
Yeah. I guess that would be my title.
Yeah, I guess it'd be your title. So thank you so much. This is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough Show. Tune in next week for your next installment. Thank you, Stephen McKee.